All right. Hi, ladies and gentlemen. In this video, we're going to look at properties of real numbers. All right, the first property is called the closure property, which we're going to look at addition and multiplication. So for the closure property, all that really says is when you add two real numbers together, your answer is a real number. So for example, 5 plus 3. Okay, when you add them together, you get a real number. So 5 plus 3 is 8, real number. So is a real number. That looks bad. I have horrible handwriting. Alrighty. Now for multiplication, what if I took 5 times 3? A real number times a real number. My result is going to be 15, which is a real number. So is a real number. All right. That's all the closure property has to do with. Now, commutative property just means you switch them. So if I say 5 plus 3, I get the same answer as I said, as if I were to say 3 plus 5. It's 8 no matter which way you look at it. Same thing, if I were to use 5 and 3 again. 5 times 3 gives me 15. I get the same answer if I took 3 times 5. It's still 15. All right. Now, my next property is associative. Think of associative property as like the grouping property. It changes the groups that the numbers associate in. So, for example, if I had, we'll just use 3, 4, and 5, okay? So 3 plus 4 plus 5. I can change the groups and add 3 plus 4 first, and then add 5 to that answer. All it's doing is changing the groups it associates with. So it's the same with multiplication. I could say 3 times the product of 4 and 5, or I can say the product of 3 and 4, multiply that times 5. It doesn't matter if you change the groups. You will still get the same answer for addition and multiplication. Okay? Our next property is identity. Now, identity property, for addition, we have what's called our identity element, which is 0. What does that mean? Means that any number plus 0 is itself. It's identity. See? So, any number, so let's just say 5 plus the identity number or identity element 0 gives you, it identifies that number, gives you 5. Now in multiplication, the identity element is not 0. It's 1. Because if I were to take 5 times 1, I get the number I started with, 5. Okay, so identity property, it gives you the number you had. All right, our next property is the inverse property. Okay, now any number plus its inverse will give you the identity element for addition, which is 0. So if I were to take 5 plus its inverse is -5, another integer, 5 plus -5 adds to 0, which is the identity element for addition. Now, inverses for multiplication are not just positives and negatives. They are reciprocals. So if I were to take 5 times its inverse, which is the reciprocal of 5, 1/5, and I were to multiply those together, I get 1, which is the identity element for multiplication. Oh, that's pretty cool. So those two properties are related. Be very, very careful you don't mix them up. Okay? Now, the last property we're going to look at today is distributive. Distributive combines both multiplication and addition. It can also use subtractions, but we are just going to look at addition today. So, for example, if I had 3 times the sum of 4 and 5. We like our 3s, 4s, and 5s today. Okay? This is the same thing as if I were to distribute. I like to think of it as like when you play cards, how you distribute the cards, you pass out the cards. I am distributing this 3 amongst what's inside of the group. So if you were playing a card game, you would distribute the cards amongst those who are in the group. So 3 times 4, and then I write down the plus sign and take 3 times 5. This is the distributive property. I have distributed the 3 over the sum of 4 and 5. All right, enjoy working with these properties and keep it real proper.